everyone. Welcome to the 78th Inter-Martiniere meet, which culminates today with the Lucknow vs Kolkata debates. This morning, the girls from the sister schools are ready to make their opinions heard. I know you have also been waiting with bated breath for this powerful clash of ideas. The excitement is palpable, and the speakers are raring to take the podium. Before we begin, let us all remember that debating is a skill that involves a lively exchange of perspectives, passionate arguments, and respectful dialogue. This competition is not just about winning an argument, but about having courage to express, to learn, and to grow. And as we know, at the end of the day, whichever side is declared the winner, the win is for Rebuttal. Now, before we move ahead with the proceedings, I would request our principal, Mrs. R. Sarkar, to say a few words.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, distinguished guests who are here. We welcome you to our Inter-Martiniere Girls' Debate held here in Kolkata. Great pleasure to welcome all those who are here. Especially, we acknowledge the presence of heads of institutions, teachers from various schools, and people who have come sometimes all the way from faraway places, ex-students, and especially people who have waited for one more year to witness this debate. I welcome in my midst Ma'am Das, Principal of the Lucknow Girls College, also Mr. Das, Mr. Everett, Principal, Lucknow Boys College, Mr. Menezes, in charge, Rebuttal Boys, Kolkata. All the boys and girls who have travelled in the Lucknow teams, thank you so much for making 3 exciting days possible with your presence. All the faculty, the teachers, the officials who have travelled from Lucknow, thank you so much for your presence and for all your guidance and mentorship to your teams. And we've had exciting 3 days of the meet with swimming, basketball, football, and it brings us to the last day of the meet in terms of the tournaments, and that is the day of the debates. We are very honored, therefore, this morning to welcome the chairperson of our debate, no other than the reputed Mr. Pradeep Guptu. He is the Founder Secretary of the Debating Circle. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation. And it is my honor to welcome him in our midst and also to introduce him to you. He is the Founder Secretary of the Liberal think tank, Bengal Initiative, and the Research, Writing and Publishing Wing. Author of multiple books, the latest being Atiti Devo Bhava, the Indian Odyssey, an internationally circulated volume, published by FHRAI, and the incredible India campaign at the Global Summit in Bhubaneswar in October 2015. He is the author of 500 editorials and articles in the Economic Times and the Business Standard newspapers. In addition, he is the advisory editor of the City Urban Heritage and Adventure magazine, Wheels. Sir, it is our privilege to welcome you in our midst of the traditional. We also welcome in our midst our 3 distinguished judges for this morning. We welcome Ma'am Joy Bose, author and poet. I think we can welcome them a little louder with our applause. Mrs. Nita Kaloria, educator and social entrepreneur. Mr. Priyam Mari, journalist and media consultant. And I now hand over the proceedings of today's debate to Mr. Gupta. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your very kind words, Mr. Sarkar. It's always an honor and a pleasure to come back to any of the Rebuttal schools in Kolkata, to visit any of the Rebuttal schools elsewhere in India or the world. And it's a double honor for me to be chairing this debate, because I was honestly quite unsure when I was young whether to be a debater or to be a quizzer. Tried my hand at both. Not that success was the benchmark, but for some reason I found debating a more stimulating exercise. Perhaps because quizzing told me to memorize answers which had to be repeated, which seemed so much like my exams that I wanted to get away from it as far as I could. So hence you lapse into debating. And we have two brilliant schools here, two sister schools, one from Kolkata and one from Lucknow. And in keeping with the hospitality for which both our cities are known, let me welcome the team from Lucknow first. The principal speaker, Jyotika Minocha. Jyotika, welcome. The second speaker, Jayati Khan. The third speaker, Adhitri Tulsian. And the fourth reserve speaker, Shreya Subhashira. Welcome to our city. If it is your first, please proceed. If it is your first visit to our city, I hope you have spared some time to look around and enjoy the lights and sounds and the company of Kolkatans. Representing the host school are Divyansh Jain as principal speaker. That is very partisan. You have to make up for them with the Lucknow team once they're in. Sudiksha Keshan. Lavanya Jain as the third speaker. And Abhinasha Sinha as the reserve speaker. Okay, audience, I want a loud clapping for the Lucknow team as well. I have two equally eminent and formidable timekeepers to my right and to your left, and that is Ms. Abbas from Lucknow and Mrs. Kale from Kolkata. They are completely impartial. At the before, when you have 1 minute to go in your speech, we'll hear a single word. Ma'am, can you ring the bell once? And when you reach the end of your speech, you will have a persistent, disturbing clanging. Ma'am, can we have that? Thank you. That's what we are going to do. The rules of the debate, do you want me to read them out, if that is necessary? So, the principal speakers will be speaking for 5 plus 2 minutes. These are the essentials. The second and third speakers for 4 plus 2 minutes. So, principal speaker, you'll hear a bell at the 6th minute and then a persistent clanging at the 7th minute. Second and third speakers, 5 minutes, 4 minutes and 2 minutes. Okay, so 2 minutes. Then there will be a summing up by the principal speakers of 5 minutes each. The opposition goes first, the proposition comes finally. And the teams received 4 topics, out of which they selected 1 to debate here today. And the motion before this House is that this House believes artificial intelligence is making society more isolated. Artificial intelligence is making society more isolated. So the speakers will be marked on the usual content, 20 points, delivery 5 points, argument 5 points, rebuttal 10 points, summing up for the principal speaker 10 points, general impression of the teams 5 points, and questions asked 5 more points. The definition of the content and arguments have been given to you, shared with you, so I will not repeat that in detail. Please, I have one request as a debater from the era of the dinosaurs, is that please make sure that you reach the question in the question mark in the question as quickly as possible. Your question should be shorter than the speech that prompted it, and it should not give your opponent a time to prepare their reply. So please make your questions as attractive and as hard-hitting as possible. Each speaker will face 2 questions. Once the decision, once you've all spoken and the judges are ready with their scores, they will hand them over to the tabulators. While the results are being tabulated, we'll throw open this motion on the floor. We request you to come up to, I think, this mic and speak. That's because we want you to suffer with the light in your eyes like we are suffering now. But also because I can't see anything because of the lights that are in our eyes. When you come up, do come up in an orderly but swift manner so that we don't waste time. Ask your question and please tell us who the question is directed at. There will be no cross-questioning in the competitive phase. In other words, you cannot supplement the question by saying, no, that's not what was happening. So no cross-questioning. And also, the question should be based on the speech delivered and not on something that was not said, or not on something that somebody else said, or not on something that, people are hallucinating about. So make sure you do that. Now, AI is a wonderful and weird phenomenon that is upon us. Human societies pass through these technology cycles every now and then. We had Google at one point of time, we had the internet phenomenon at one point of time, and in normal human fashion, we said this is the end of society and whatever, but we don't know what is going to happen. Because this is a very different thing. It's not a tool, it's a technology. It's something that doesn't wait for you. It's something that moves on its own. And one of the casualties of this process, one of the pluses of the process, for example, would be definitely much greater access to knowledge, much greater access to the tools of analysis, but there is also an emotional cost in any technology. When a person in the 19th century had a personal relationship with the horse that he rode, or the lady of the house knew the bullock that were pulling their cart, that relationship you cannot have with a piece of machinery like an automobile. So there's an emotional toll of all technology, which I think is the crux of the motion here about whether a new technology is disrupting our emotional framework. And you are the best speakers, I'm sure, among the best speakers in this country. I'm sure I'll lead to the further round of the Frank Anthony debate or the other national debates that we have. But we come here for 3 things. We want you to inform us on this motion. We want you to educate and help us understand this. And we also want you to, in some way, entertain us so that I remember your speech. And so that the judges remember your speech. And so that the judges mark you kindly, and all of you do it. At the end of the day, because this is competitive, somebody would have picked ahead by 1 mark or slipped by a mark. That is not the point. If every one of us should leave this hall understanding that today by attending this session, I at least learned this bit more. And I heard a good intervention, which I should remember, because next time I'm discussing AI with my friends, I'll tell them, you know what I heard at the Martiniere debate? This is what I heard at the Martiniere. So I'm not trying to burden you with anything. All I'm saying is, enjoy this debate. If you enjoy the debate, we will enjoy the debate. Right? You are the best speakers. Have that confidence. And give us the best. So, timekeepers, are we ready? Can we now have the first speaker for the proposition, who is none other than Jyotika Minocha from the Inter-Martiniere from Lucknow. You want to give us a self-timer, like a 3, 2, 1?
Check. Am I audible? Check. I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine you're sitting in a large pitch dark room. You're sitting in front of a radiant entity which is capable enough and smart enough to solve your mathematical problems. But members, it lacks a fist-sized organ. It lacks the source of vibrating energy, the mind. And it lacks the source of all energies, your soul. Members, you provide a prompt to this entity which reads, I am feeling disconnected, please help me. And the reply comes, I am working. But members, is anybody actually there for you? With that, greetings to the house at large. The topic undefinedly reads that this house believes that artificial intelligence is making the society more isolated, and I, Jyotika Minocha, as principal speaker, recite proposition from the Inter-Martiniere Girls College, Lucknow, stand here firmly supporting the motion. Now members, before delving into today's constructives, I would like to first elaborate on the key terms which form the heart of the topic at hand. The first one being isolated. Now members, when we are talking about isolated, it refers to the condition of being separated from anyone or anything, even yourself. Members, when we are talking about society as a whole, we refer to the group of individuals who seek to help each other survive and grow and improve the quality of life. Now members, at this very juncture, it is extremely imperative for me to actually elaborate on the psychology of isolation in order to make this topic take this topic at a very deeper emotional level. So members, isolation is the coping mechanism that I and all of us use in order to avoid human interaction and in order to avoid worries. Now members, the words avoid human interaction simply highlight how the moment we resort to artificial intelligence, we are devoid of human connection, of human interaction. And members, this in simple words is isolation. Members, we need to understand that this leads to a very important thing which is known as the isolation cycle. It starts and begins with your desire to isolate. Then comes the triggering of the mental health battle. And then members, your isolation is activated, which makes you feel completely unmotivated and completely lethargic. Now members, these seemingly theoretical problems are actually manifested into a real life when we go through those dopamine loops. And members, this is something which is completely relatable to all of us, and thus members, artificial intelligence plays a key role in detaching us from the human world and the society. Members, we also need to understand that there is a difference in communication and connection. Communication is merely exchange of information, but connection primarily deals with understanding at a deeper emotional level. Members, my friends can connect with me and understand me, but members, can the speakers sitting on the stage connect with me? No, members, they can simply communicate with me. Connection goes at an emotional level where you understand the inner thoughts and needs. And can automated systems or code-driven and code-oriented systems like artificial intelligence understand our thoughts? No, members, simply not. We also need to understand now that isolation works on pathos, but when we're talking about artificial intelligence, it works on logos. Members, let's consider the words companionship, connection, kinship, passion, and members, intense emotional feelings. Now members, let's consider the words programs, codes, automated, and the artificial part of artificial intelligence. Members, the latter barely connects us and barely involves genuine human connection. We need to understand that it plays a key role in actually separating us from not only others but also from ourselves. Now let's talk about a very important aspect, self-isolation. We need to consider the fact that when we are resorting to artificial intelligence, we are simply widening the gap between our conscious and our self. When we ask artificial intelligence for our preferences, for advice on our emotional and mental well-being, and when we are compelled by artificial intelligence to think and behave in that way, members, it is then that we are self-isolated. It leaves no scope, absolutely no scope, members, for self-introspection and self-discovery, which is a major requirement for not feeling detached or disconnected from oneself. We need to understand that in 1951, Ray Bradbury had written the story The Pedestrian. Remember, that is a simple example of the motion at hand. In fact, Mark Strand in his poem Making Things Whole actually said that wherever I am what is missing. This is always the case. It simply highlights how we as individuals lack our individuality. We need to consider that my second speaker would be talking about the true values of humans, and my third speaker would be talking about the augmented integrity. Eternity, members. To conclude, members, I would just like to say that artificial intelligence is cutting the thread that connect each of us present today, and it is connecting us to artificial intelligence itself, and thus isolating and detaching us. With that, I would like to rest my case but not my son. Thank you.
Thank you, Jyotika. Thank you so much. I congratulate you for, living up to every expectation I had from the opening speaker in the Martiniere debate. Now we have questions from the opposition, and yes, Abhilasha.
Thank you for your speech, ma'am. Do you not agree that AI itself never makes us or imposes on us the need to be isolated, but it is our own coping mechanism, as you said?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. With due permission of the chair, I will answer the question.
Answer.
Madam Speaker, you are stating that AI is not compelling us, but when we use AI, we are actually become isolated, and thus you're agreeing to our stance, because we are saying that when we use artificial intelligence, the artificial part of artificial intelligence plays its role and it makes us devoid of genuine human connection, which exactly is the motion at hand, and which is exactly what I stated in my entire speech. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you for your speech, ma'am. Ma'am, do you not believe that humans are social beings and that the existence of artificial intelligence is something that coexists with human existence?
Thank you for your question, ma'am. With due permission of the chair, I would like to answer. Thank you so much for this wonderful question, ma'am, as it gives me the opportunity to elaborate on something that I missed in my speech. Members, humans are social beings. This very fact makes us believe that humans want human interaction. That is the basic necessity. Without interacting, without connecting, we cannot survive in this world. And when we are resorting to artificial intelligence, we are widening the gap between each other. We are widening the gap between inside ourselves. Instead of looking inside for advice, instead of looking up to elders for advice, we resort to a medium which is cold, which is just a machine, and nothing more than that. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Very nice. As the first speaker of the proposition from Lucknow, we've been given a pretty comprehensive framework of how this motion can look like. It's now for the opposition, of course, to show that not only do they have counter arguments, but I'm sure also that they've listened to the speech and they're prepared for it. So the first opposition speaker is Divyansha Jain from Rebuttal for Girls, Kolkata. Suddenly one hand went up and then there was total silence. Reminded me of model, great dictator of Charlie Chaplin. Silence. Thank you. I love this discipline. Please start with
Thank you for that very warm welcome. I will be starting at the self count of 3, 2, 1. Friends, my fellow Martinians and countrymen, lend me your ears. Imagine walking into a room. On one side, you see a priest asking you to believe him without any evidence. On the other side, you see a politician asking you to believe him despite the evidence. Members of the House, that room today is not imaginary, it is just the bench of the opposition. On that note, a very good morning to one and all present here. Today, the very crux of the proposition's argument here is that isolation is a coping mechanism and it is this circle that we operate in. Now today, if I prove to the House that humans are social beings and isolation is something which cannot work with the existence of humans, we win the debate. So now Wordsworth in his poem Daffodils said, "For often when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. So here, Wordsworth was on a walk with his sister. Now, what we can understand from this is that what shapes human experiences or what shapes humans are the experiences that we have. And that experience comes from social interaction. So today, when we look at the context of today's motion, since time immemorial, from the time of the hunter-gatherers, we as human beings crave social connection. We want that. Now, in the world that the proposition has painted today, they have painted a world where only AI is existing and all other humans have been eradicated from this planet. However, members of the house, that is something which is entirely theoretical and it cannot be taken into practice. So now society as a whole is very diverse. When we look at the grassroots level of what is happening in society, we have humans, like-minded individuals form communities. These communities then go on to shape societies. Thus, essentially, what makes us humans is that we crave connection, we crave attachment, and that is an inherent human trait. So the very argument of the proposition about saying it is a cycle is not true, because with humans, something like isolation cannot be there for an eternity. Today, if I have a fight with my best friend, I will not talk to her for 2 days. But after that, I crave her support, I crave her impact in my life, and then I will go and I will definitely talk to her. Thus, essentially, the very crux of the proposition's argument falls today. Now, as opposition, we will be proving to the House two things. One, that isolation is not possible with respect to humans, because human beings in their very nature crave connection. And secondly, we will prove that how, if society is becoming more isolated, AI, artificial intelligence, has nothing to do with it. Now, as the lead speaker of the opposition, it is my duty to explain to the House what AI essentially is. AI, it is a technological revolution. It is a tool that was created to simulate human intelligence such that it can automate tasks, make our work faster, efficient, leaving room for more social interaction. So AI operates in two spheres of our lives. One is the efficiency in the tasks that we undertake, and second is the accessibility of information. This will be elaborated upon by my second speaker. And secondly, members of the House, when we talk about isolation, that is lack of human interaction. It is not a coping mechanism, as the lead speaker pointed out. Members of the House, it is simply a lack of human interaction, which is not possible because we as human beings crave connection. And that is why this motion today is absolute, because it puts the entire burden on artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence is the reason society becomes more isolated. Now, when we look at the reasons society as a whole becomes isolated, artificial intelligence has no role to play in it. It is because of those pre-existing disparities, be it economic, social, poverty, etc. Thus, with the coming of artificial intelligence, there is no room for actually humans becoming more isolated, because, as I stated, it is nothing but a technological revolution, and this will be highlighted upon by my second speaker. And essentially, if artificial intelligence might have replaced anything today, it is just the logic on the part of the proposition. And with that, Style Opposition's lead speaker would like to rest their case. Thank you.
Thank you, Divyanka. And yes, I can see the first question, and you are? Okay, please, so use that mic, please. Yeah, switch it on. There's a mysterious switch somewhere. Use this, please.
Thank you for the speech, ma'am. With the due permission of the chair, I'd like to ask you a question. Ma'am, you mentioned in your very own speech that AI makes our work faster and people are reliable on it. But ma'am, do you not realize the moment we make artificial intelligence do our work, we are being isolated from our very own thoughts, from our very own self, and self-isolation is being happening in our entire society. How will that justify your stance?
Thank you for your question, ma'am. That question inherently stems from a very narrow definition of isolation. Because when we define isolation, it is not just isolation of thoughts or isolation of self. Isolation has two aspects, mental as well as physical. Thus, going by your definition, the motion today will definitely not stand.
Second question from the same question. Okay. You sure nobody of your teammates would like to ask? No? Okay. Judges will please note that the same debater is asking both the questions. Yeah, start.
Thank you for the speech, ma'am. With the due permission of the chair, I'd like to ask you the second question. Ma'am, in your speech, you mentioned how the burden of side opposition today is proof how humans are social beings and crave human interaction. But ma'am, the motion at hand clearly states more isolation. Hence, even if we prove that 1% by artificial intelligence, even using chatbots for therapy, people are isolated, the motion stands. How would you like to justify your burden?
Thank you for your question, ma'am. Your question, again, is based on an entirely hypothetical scenario wherein you have eradicated all of the humans in the world and thus, as a result, people are turning to ChatGPT or chatbots for therapy. However, that is not the case because we as humans are social beings indeed.
Thank you, Vijayasha. Please take your seat. The second speaker from the proposition, who's denied 1 minute compared to the principal speaker, is Shreyashi Jha from Rebuttal. You can self-time yourself and start, Shreyashi.
I hope I'm audible. I'll begin my speech on the self count of 3, 2, 1. I am because we are. Greetings to the House at large. The topic under fireplace states that this House believes that artificial intelligence is making society more isolated, and I, Shreyashi Jha, the second speaker of Inter-Martiniere Girls College Lucknow, stand here firmly proposing the motion. Now, members, before this debate commenced, the chairperson said, and I quote, AI does not wait for anyone. And that is exactly what the philosophy of Ubuntu in South Africa talks about. That the identity of humans is shaped by their connections and their interdependence with their surroundings, that is themselves, the people, and the things around them. We need to understand, members, that the motion talks about is making. It does not talk about the future, it does not talk about the past, it talks about the present scenario. And as and when technology advances, as and when AI is becoming prevalent, the lines between true human connection and our interactions with AI are being blurred. Members, we need to understand that what comes to our mind immediately when we think about AI, how the AI-powered social media algorithms act as echo chambers. They reflect and they reinforce our already existing beliefs. They lead to doom scrolling. They lead to binge watching. What are these? These are vicious traps generated and regulated by AI to keep us in a cycle of content, members. We need to understand that this displaces our time. We need to understand that artificial intelligence leads to the reduction of jobs as well. No one in this house can deny that fact. How does that relate to the motion? The moment you are in your house and your printer is not working, you call up the customer service. You are going to the bank or you are talking to a retailer. These minor roles now are being replaced by AI due to automation. We need to understand that this is what is making us devoid of casual social connections, and that does lead to isolation, members. Isolation comes in when communication goes out, and communication has its 3 levels, and so does isolation. That is intrapersonal within the self, interpersonal, and group and mass. As a student of mass media and communication, I can assure you that the 5 barriers that exist in communication, that is physical, psychological, semantic, cultural, and physical, cannot be overcome by AI at all. Why? Because of cultural bias, because of algorithmic bias, because of the lack of human element. Members, we need to understand that right now, the moment, like as we're having this debate right now, in America, 1 out of 8 teenagers is using ChatGPT as their therapist, as their life coach, giving them information and advice. And the CEO of ChatGPT, that is Mr. Sam Altman, in a podcast said that he himself does not reveal his personal information on this chatbot because of privacy concerns.
And this is exactly what we learned in the theory of connectionism by Edward Thorndike as well. He says that to learn anything, there are three steps: law of readiness, law of exercise, and law of effect. And ChatGPT and other AI tools will never be able to fulfill these, members. We need to understand that we live in a world where we need to experience things, and AI lacks that, members. We also need to understand that the confidentiality that comes between a therapist and a patient, between friends, that is not replicated in artificial intelligence. One-third users of AI do not trust humans anymore with their serious matters. They go and resort to AI tools for their advice, members. We need to understand the moment we start depending on tailored and synthetic advice, that is the very moment we are isolated from the entire world. I would like to end by quoting two lines from a poem called Leisure by W.P. Davies. That is, what is this life full of care if we have no time to stand and stare? With that being said, I rest my case, but certainly not my case.
Thank you for your very continuation of the second speaker. And now the opposition has not been questioned about. Yes.
Thank you for your speech, ma'am. In your speech, you mentioned the job market. However, considering the fact that job displacement today is in a mass scale, don't you feel that there can be a community formed of people who go through this, so therefore they are actually not isolated?
Thank you for your question, Madam Speaker. With the permission of the chairperson, I would like to answer your question by saying that it proves my point, ma'am, that when AI came into the picture, there was a huge reduction of jobs. We are not denying that AI is not a boon for society, but it is ultimately leading to isolation. The mere simple roles, the casual social interactions that used to happen, that is calling up the customer service, speaking to a human for help, is now being replaced by AI. That is isolation. I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much.
Second question from the opposition.
Thank you for your speech, ma'am. You began your speech by saying, I am because we are, and how identity of humans is shaped by their surroundings. So do you believe that with the coming of artificial intelligence, humans cease to exist? Thank you for your question, Madam Speaker. With the permission of the chairperson, I would like to answer. I do not believe that humans will cease to exist with the existence of artificial intelligence. The motion at hand reads that artificial intelligence is making society more isolated. My third speaker and my principal speaker are going to come up today and talk about the more aspect. We need to understand that if this is a car, that is assuming that we are cars, there are four wheels, but it is the engine that drives and actually makes the car go forward. So there are multiple reasons why we are isolated. It could be one of the four wheels, but AI is that very engine that is making us more isolated. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Srivati. Please sit down, take your seat. Once again, a lovely speech in which you covered a wide range of points and also answered the questions with confidence. And the second speaker from the proposition is Sudiksha Keshan from the Kolkata School. Okay. I sometimes wonder whether these shouts are making them more confident or eroding them more. Right. Sudiksha, please start.
Am I audible? In the words of the band 1974, like context in a modern debate, I took it out. And today I think that is the motto or side proposition. On that note, good morning to one and all present here. Today the lead speaker and the second speaker side proposition repeatedly came up and said how if we are unable to form a connection, an emotional connection with AI, it is not the fault of the humans, but it is the fault of the AI. Members of the House, that would be like saying that if today humans can't form an emotional connection with the TV, that is the fault of the TV. But members, is that truly the case? No. Moving on, members of the House, today a proposition came up and said that humans want human connections. And because we turn to AI, we fail to form these connections. Members of the House, if humans are already aware of the fact that AI is incapable of forming emotional connections, why are we turning to AI? According to them, someone is putting humans at a gunpoint and forcing them to form an emotional connection with AI. But that is not the case. Humans turn to humans for human connections and not AI. Because members of the House, what is AI? As stated by my lead speaker, AI is nothing but a tool. AI enables our tasks and makes society at large more efficient. Members of the House, today, according to side proposition, social interaction is only conversation. But we all know that social interaction is not just conversation. It is also celebration. It is also dancing. What is AI capable of doing? It is only capable of conversation. Therefore, since human interaction is not equal to conversation, AI is not equal to isolation. Moving on, members of the House, AI is simply a tool that democratizes information, makes information more accessible to us. Let me give you an example for this. When the Supreme Court verdict on dogs came out, many of my friends were unaware of this and did not know about this because they did not want to read a 10-minute long article. But what they did is that they turned to AI to give them a quick 100-word summary on this issue, and because of this information that was provided to them because of AI, they were able to interact with me and other people who knew about this issue. Therefore, they were able to engage in discussions because of the democratization of information done by AI. And members of the House, as we know, discussion is nothing but a form of human interaction. Therefore, what AI does is that it promotes human interaction rather than promoting isolation. Moving on, members of the House, because AI makes our life efficient, that does not mean it is making us isolated. We cannot equate efficiency with isolation. Today, if I was in a situation where I had to make a poster for my sister's birthday, and at the same time I also had to go and attend a holy party, let's look at how I would deal with the situation before AI. Before AI, I would not go to that holy party and I would sit and make that poster for hours. But now, because I have access to AI, I can take the help of AI and make that poster in 5 minutes, thus allowing me to attend that holy party as well, thus promoting social interaction. Because why? AI has made my life more efficient, it has saved my time, giving me more time for social interaction to not feel isolated. Moving on, members of the House, let me give you an example. We all know about the Ghibli art trend that came into place because of AI. Members of the House, is not the society following a trend, a symbol of society being connected and not being isolated. Ghibli art trend was a trend started because of AI. Humans started following a trend because of AI. How is that AI leading to isolation? Humans are following a trend showing that humans are connected. They follow a similar ideology and they connect with each other. Following a trend is opposite of isolation, and therefore I hope with this I have proven to you that AI is not leading to isolation. Members of the House, truth is not always comfortable, but truth is always undeniable, and today truth is on the side of side proposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. I hope your mic will work now. I hope your mic will work now. Yeah.
Thank you for the speech, ma'am. With the due permission of the chair, I'd like to ask you a question. Ma'am, you mentioned in your speech how AI is a tool and nobody is at a gunpoint to stop human interaction. But ma'am, you realize AI as a tool is deliberately, algorithmically designed to stop excessive communication, which leads to excess screen time and at the end, human isolation from other humans. How would you justify your stance?
Thank you for your question, ma'am. Ma'am, you said that AI deliberately starts conversation. Members of the House, AI is not going to start talking to you on its own unless you approach AI and give it a prompt. And also, what you are talking about is a very privileged section of the society. Is AI accessible to everyone around the world? Members of the House, the answer is no. You are talking about a very privileged section of the society who always approaches AI for therapy. Members of the House, we know that is not the case. Because of the reason that AI is not accessible to everyone, it does not encompass the entire society. Society at large is not being isolated, and we cannot cherry pick examples of 1 or 2 cases where people felt isolated because of AI to prove the point today. Thank you.
Thank you for speech, ma'am. With the due permission of the chair, I'd like to ask you a question. Ma'am, you mentioned in your speech, and I quote, humans turn to humans for interaction. Ma'am, you realize it's a very well proven fact that AI most of the time validates your point, hence people are being addicted to it for the very same reason. What would you like to say about that?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. What we need to understand today is that why was AI created? AI was created with the objective of making human lives easier by making human lives more efficient. Thus, to say that AI today, the objective of AI was to replace human connection is absolutely false, because AI's objective is to be a tool, is to research. Today, if I am a bookworm and I continuously read a book, that does not mean I am isolating myself from the human world. Because I like reading books does not mean I am isolating myself from the world. I am reading a book because its purpose is to provide entertainment and to catalyze my thought process. Therefore, to blame AI for isolating humans is absolutely wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudipta. Thank you for a spirited defense of your speech. And the third speaker from the proposition will be Aditri Tulsian from the Martiniere Lucknow. And he
She can't hear you. Aye, Captain. 5, 6, 7, 8. Aye, send the team to the cabin. Aye.
Okay, so with that enthusiasm, I would like to begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Let me take you ahead in time by 10 years to a place where three cousins meet. Now they have a very small argument about what they would like to play, and as a result, all three of them wear their individual VR headsets and play their individual games. Despite being together, are they not isolated? Greetings everyone. The motion at hand today says that artificial intelligence is making society more isolated, and I, Aditri Tulsian, the third speaker of side proposition, stand here firmly supporting the motion. At the very outset, members understand that the motion today states the word more. More is a comparative word. Equating it with most does not make sense. Therefore, today we are debating whether artificial intelligence we're not debating whether artificial intelligence is the biggest factor for us feeling isolated, but whether it is a factor or not. Because even if it makes us isolated by 1%, it is making us more isolated, and the motion would stand. To prove this, the very existence of chatbots and the case wherein a person is ready to marry an AI companion proves how lonely we are and how this AI is making us lonelier to the extent that we're ready to marry an AI companion. I would like to bring up a new example to the house: augmented eternity. It is a concept in which a dead person's psyche or persona is replicated by AI, which looks and talks like them. And to explain this, I would like to take an example of a little boy who lost his parents in a tragic car accident. He relied on these augmented figures for guidance and for love. And after a few weeks, he got so addicted to it that he rebelled and stayed in his room for weeks and weeks, isolated from everybody who told him that his parents were dead. Members, this is not a hypothetical situation. This is the real life case of a boy from Utopia. Moving on, members, side opposition today mentioned that we think that if AI comes in, humans will cease to exist. Members, firstly, we do not mention that. Secondly, we do not believe in that. And thirdly, when we talk about AI, it completely jams our ability to deal with complex issues, and that is why we say that it is isolating us from human isolation. I will explain how. Members, you can talk to an AI, lash out at it, and come back in a few minutes, open a new chat and act as if nothing happened. Can you do that in a real life setting? No, members. And once you get addicted to talking to this chat bot, you can never go back to an actual human relationship. Moving on, our chairperson today mentioned that AI is a piece of machine. Members, when this piece of machine is being we depend on this piece of machine too much, it does isolate us from the humane feelings of love, compassion, compromise. Moving on, every time side opposition mentioned that humans are social animals, humans crave for connection, they are supporting a stance. Because imagine that person who is living alone from his family, alone in an apartment, he has nobody to talk to. What will he do? He will open up AI, talk to them, and thus be isolated from any form of human interaction. Members, side opposition today, in a nutshell, has
completely restricted the motion to human isolation. But we need to understand the topic states isolation, which can be of any form. Self-isolation, isolation from peers, isolation from the society, isolation which is mental, physical or emotional. Members, how many of you actually go up to your library to take help for your project? Not most of you. Most of you would go onto AI, put the topic, tell it, give the prompt to give you content of 2 pages and you just copy it. Members, this is isolation from peers. This is isolation from society. You're too dependent on AI that you completely forego actual human relationships. Side opposition also mentioned that you can make a poster in 5 minutes. Members, again, don't you think that something which you could have actually taken help from with your friends, actually interacted with them, you do it with AI and thus isolating yourself with everybody. To conclude, members, the topic states isolation which can be of any form, and if AI even 1% makes us isolated, the topic today stands. And with that, I would like to rest my case with not my stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Question? Yes, very much.
Thank you for your speech, ma'am. Do you not think that we are interacting in this very debate itself because of the discussions about AI, thus fostering interaction and not, as you mentioned, dividing society?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. I see a lot of applause for the question. I really don't know why. Members, again, understand that we are interacting because we did not have AI. Exactly. If we had AI, we would have been isolated. All of us would have probably been on our phones using technology. Because members, even when we talk about algorithms which are powered by AI, they do isolate us from our settings. The very fact that we're here without AI interacting with each other just proves my point.
Question 2. What you are thinking?
Thank you. Thank you for your speech, ma'am. Considering the fact that the motion also talks about society as a whole becoming more isolated, then how do you justify your stance by taking examples of 1 or 2 humans?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. Ma'am, again, who forms society? You, me, all of us are a part of society. And if we are being isolated with each other, if we are being affected, isn't that the society being affected as a whole? I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for adhering to your time and for giving us a pretty comprehensive and informative speech. Lavanya, you are the 3rd speaker. And that's Lavanya again for you.
Let's go, Lavanya!
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I would like to open with a question to the House. Members, why did the intellectual chicken cross the stage from side propositions bench to side oppositions bench? I will give you a moment to think. It was because it felt isolated due to the lack of intellect inside propositions bench. Today, essentially, what side proposition has done is they have accused the opposition of narrowing down definitions, where their definition of society throughout all their speeches has been quite redundant. The first speaker said, and I quote, that society is made up of people who want to improve and grow. So today, members of the House, if I feel content with myself and I do not want to improve or grow, I am not a member of society. Moreover, in the question asked by the House, they had stated, and I quote, that if one person is isolated, then the motion today stands. Right now, we saw the 3rd speaker come up here and say that all of us, each and every single person constitutes society. Therefore, members, I would like you all to note that today's side proposition does not even have a concrete definition of what they consider to be society, and arguably the most important part of this motion has been ignored. Moreover, the first speaker talked about how we resort to AI. Members, why do we resort to AI? We resort to AI because there are pre-existing issues that force us to adopt that medium. Therefore, members, is it really the medium's fault? Moreover, in the question, they mentioned about how if AI does all of our work, we will be isolated from our own thoughts. But members, the last time I checked, for a generative AI to generate something, we need to give the prompt. The artificial intelligence does not give the prompt itself. It is not independent. It is dependent on the user to actually use it. Now, the analogy of a car was brought up, and it was stated how artificial intelligence is the engine of the car, which the opposition agrees to. It is the engine of the car, but it is pre-existing notions, pre-existing device that actually drive the car. So without the driver, the engine is as good as absent. Moreover, it was talked about how AI merely validates our point. If validating one's point was all that society was about, then me and my mother and my marks would not exist in the same society at all. Moreover, the first speaker talked about how this motion is stated in the present, but the third speaker started her speech by taking us further in time. This motion talks about how communication is hindered by artificial intelligence and how it isolates us. Members, I can prove to you why communication because of artificial intelligence is not isolated, but what actually is isolated is communication between the members of side proposition, as they have time and time again come up and contradicted their own stances. Moreover, dependency on AI has been shown as something to be very dystopian. However, side proposition chooses this narrow view to collectively ignore the very fact that artificial intelligence can be constructive and it does give us information. So thus, members, if side proposition needs to narrow down their case and cherry pick examples to prove to you why the motion today stands, then it really doesn't stand. Moreover, it was mentioned how if we did not have AI, we would not be interacting right now. So members, as I am speaking to you right now, Gemini, Siri, Google Home, Google Assistant, ChatGPT have just ceased to exist. So I would like to end by comparing this debate to a basketball match. Side proposition had the ball. They took it, they snatched it, they shot the ball. It went into the basket, but unfortunately, it was our basket and we got the point. So I would like to thank side proposition for the assist. With this, I rest my case. This is the third speaker of side opposition, Go Gally.
Good morning. Thank you for the speech, ma'am. With the due permission of the chair, I'd like to ask you a question. Ma'am, you mentioned in your speech multiple times how side proposition have narrowed their stance and AI can be used for constructive works also. Ma'am, do you disagree with the fact that the moment we use AI, the moment we use Ghibli art, we are denying ourselves from our inner thoughts, inner values, inner creativity, and isolation is present over there as well?
Thank you for that question, ma'am. But I believe that when we use artificial intelligence as a tool to further what we want to do, we are furthering our own imagination. We are carrying out things that we want to carry out. Again, artificial intelligence is not independent. It does not think on its own and give us a generated image of ourselves. We give it the image, we give it the prompt and the directions, and that is exactly what it does. So our intellect is exercised and artificial intelligence is utilized. So I hope that answers it.
Thank you. Second question is, that's Jyotika, right?
Thank you for your speech, Madam Speaker. With the due permission of the chair, I would like to ask a question. Ma'am, you repeatedly mentioned in your speech that there are pre-existing problems in the society and it's not the fault of artificial intelligence. But ma'am, don't you agree that the topic is not about pre-existing problems, but artificial intelligence as a problem, and this in no way supports your stance, instead it consolidates our stance. Please justify it.
Thank you for that question, ma'am, but I feel that you have misunderstood what the motion today is about. The motion today, as you said correctly, is blaming artificial intelligence for societal isolation. However, we as side opposition are showing to you how it is not artificial intelligence but pre-existing disparities, as it is our job as opposition to prove the invalidity of today's motion and show you what is the actual truth. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Do take your seat. My dear audience, judges, we will all agree, I think, with my proposition that human intelligence beats artificial intelligence any day. The quality of the speeches we have heard today, prepared by our young debaters, with the aid of traditional tools rather than any mobile phones, has been most impressive. We now move on to the summing up part of the speeches, and in keeping with normal parliamentary practice, the opposition speaker, the leader of the opposition, Divyansha Jain, will sum up first, and she gets how many minutes? 5 minutes to do her Saviman.
Am I audible? Alright. I'll be starting at a self count of 3, 2, 1. Basketballers, footballers, swimmers, and the dignitaries present in the house, a very good morning once again. World War II has ended. Donald Trump has been re-elected as the President of the United States, and RCB has won the IPL, though the women won it first. Members of the House, all of this has happened before the proposition today made sense, and I will exactly prove why by highlighting the clashes in today's debate. Now today, what both sides of the House agree upon is that we as humans are social beings and we crave emotional connection. Now today, the burden of the proposition was to prove to the House that the society as a whole is getting more isolated, and that reason is entirely artificial intelligence. Members of the House, the motion in its wording is an absolute motion, and that is why it does not stand, because we as opposition have proved to you two things. A, humans are social beings and isolation is something which can never exist for an eternity. It is not a cycle, it will have to come to an end at one point of time. So today the second speaker of the proposition started her speech by saying, I am because we are. Thus essentially humans exist because there are humans. If today humans did not exist, what would be the reason? Humans have ceased to exist. Thus essentially when we talk about isolation, we need to understand that when isolation comes into place, it means there is no form of social interaction at all. However, that is clearly not the case. Now the first speaker kept elaborating on how isolation is essentially a vicious cycle and you keep coming back and back to it. However, members of the House, the very nature, the very inherent trait of humans is to go and find connection in others, and that is why their argument today does not stand. Now essentially we are debating in the present, we are talking about whether artificial intelligence is making society more isolated or not. And the first speaker, she spoke about the isolation cycle, the second speaker spoke about the present, and the third speaker took us fast forward in time. Now essentially what we need to understand is that if I go and use ChatGPT, I go and use any form of AI which is present today, that won't negate the fact that I am using it. At the same time, millions of people around the world also use AI. So humans, we thrive on communities, and communities can never isolate themselves, because look at the time of the hunter-gatherers. If today isolation was actually an inherent human trait, then hunter-gatherers wouldn't have survived, because for survival you need connection, and isolation is thus something which cannot be, something which humans cannot adapt as a whole. Now secondly, members of the House, when we talk about isolation in society, why does it essentially happen? Because of pre-existing disparities. Today there is a section of the population which cannot access the internet even though we live in a highly digitized economy. The reason being that there is a community of people who can't access the internet. Then the second speaker brought about the reduction of jobs in the market. However, members of the House, it is not one person who is losing his job. There are so many people who are losing their jobs, and as a result it leads to the formation of a community which loses their job. When I was in class 10, I had friends in both the commerce section and the science section. But today when I came in 11 and I took up commerce, I had to change the set of friends I had to make new friends, because in order to be able to be in that classroom and concentrate on what my teacher is saying, I need connection. Just because I am not talking to my friend once, or I am going and talking to ChatGPT, that does not mean that we as a society are isolated as a whole, because there are essentially a lot of factors that go into the isolation of a society. Now today what side opposition has done is that we have proved to the House how AI as a tool which is built on pattern recognition, it is based on democratizing creativity, democratizing knowledge. If any, it is becoming more and more accessible to the world. Today, as citizens of Kolkata, we know when we go outside H&M and there is this ice cream man and he tells us, ma'am, would you like to have an ice cream? We say, no, ma'am. Then he says, okay, I will give you my UPI card, you can please forward the change there. Thus, essentially, AI is becoming increasingly accessible, and as a result, we are all forming a community of people who live together, and for us to exist, isolation can never coexist with humanity. It will have to come to an end at one point of time. And then the proposition spoke about how there are different sorts of isolation, self-isolation, and all those who are members of the house. When we define isolation in very simple terms, it is lack of human interaction which can very technically does not happen. And with that, side opposition would like to rest their case. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Please do take your seat, Vijayanta. And signing up for the proposition is Jyotika Minocha. Jyotika, you too have 5 minutes. After which, judges, you will have to surrender your marking sheets till we have the reserved speakers coming up.
Do not cease to exist just because they're ignored. Now, since I'm clearly audible, I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. It was rightly said by William Shakespeare that who alone suffers most in thy mind, leaving free things and happy shores behind. But then the mind such sufferings overskip, when grief hath mate and suffering bearing fellowship. With that, greetings to the house once again. I, Jyotika Minocha, as the principal speaker of side proposition, consider it my utmost prerogative to highlight the gaping holes in the hollow arguments of side opposition, while at the same time, I would like to sum up my stance. But before that, members, let me first prove the burden of proof of both proposition as well as opposition. Members' side proposition had to fundamentally prove to you how AI, which is something completely mechanical, is making society more detached and separated and is increasing the divide between all of us, which we have clearly done. Members, the opposition had to simply prove to you how AI, despite being artificial, is helping you, me and all of us be emotionally connected, which they absolutely and masterfully failed to do. Now, members, to sum up my side stance, as a principal speaker, I clearly spoke about how the very concept of isolation is done to avoid human interaction. And the moment we use AI, we are avoiding human interaction, and thus AI is isolating the society. Members, my second speaker spoke about the types of communication and elaborated on the values of human connection, something which the side opposition is not trying to understand today. Members, my third speaker gave multiple examples that consolidated our stance, and members, we need to realize that the opposition today was in that deep slumber. They didn't even realize they had been refuted today. Now, members, the opposition today played the role of fairy godmother. They dressed up fallacies as arguments. But members, it's midnight and the glittering carriage needs to turn into the pumpkin. It truly was. Now, members, to highlight how there was a contradiction in their very own speeches, we need to understand that the principal speaker today came up and said that solitude and isolation, these are two similar concepts. But we need to understand that the cameraman sitting over there is enjoying his work. He is enjoying his solitude. But members, the boys in Inter-Martiniere, boys Lucknow sitting there, who is feeling that his friends are not talking to him and is sitting amongst his friends, is isolated. There is a difference between isolated and solitude. Solitude is a positive approach to feeling alone, versus isolated is something which makes you feel lonely, which makes you feel completely disconnected and is a negative emotion and not a positive one. Members, we also need to understand that every speaker of proposition and opposition said that humans crave connection and attachment. Members, the principal speaker said that human beings crave attachment, and this very fact proves that we get attached. Now, members, we need to understand that when we are using AI and we get attached to AI, it is the very moment that we become isolated from everyone around us and from ourselves. Members, we also need to understand that the principal speaker today spoke about AI as something which is not to be blamed, but we are to be blamed. Now, let's consider a simple example. Let's consider the example of a pair of scissors. If I am using a pair of scissors to cut a piece of paper, then would I say that my hands, because I am using the pair of scissors, are sharp enough to cut the piece of paper? No, members, it is the tool that I am using. Thus, members, we need to blame the tool and not the users, because that tool is actually making us attached, according to the principal speaker, making us attached to that tool and thus making us isolated from everything. We also needed to understand that the principal speaker mentioned about pre-existing disparities, thus consolidating our stance, because we are not talking about pre-existing disparities. We are simply saying how artificial intelligence is adding to the problem of isolation from the society, which proves our stance. Now, the opposition today accused us of having narrow definitions, but considering the fact that there is no AI system in this hall today, and the fact that AI is not there to understand their vulnerabilities, but I, being a human, can understand their vulnerabilities, let me provide definitions. Members, detachment, disconnection, separation, segregation, restricting human interaction. All such words and phrases prove to you what is isolation, but they are simply ignorant to that fact. Now, members, their arguments were like ice which melted with the heat of our arguments. The second speaker today mentioned the example of TV, but members, we need to understand that TV is not for connection, and thus their examples were completely irrelevant today. Now, let me explain something that they mentioned, that the discussion is a form of human interaction. Now, let's consider two situations. Now, this discussion that we're having without the help of artificial intelligence. And in this kind of discussion, we are actually engaging. But members, if we had the chance to use artificial intelligence, then those discussions and the thoughts we would speak out wouldn't be our original thoughts, and thus we would be isolated from our thought process. Members, the second speaker mentioned about Ghibli art, but let me elaborate on it.
You really have to end, Jyotika. The bell is on, so yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just sorry.
The Ghibli art was created by a human being which was leaked within seconds, and that human being named Miyazaki became isolated, thus proving our very own stance. Now today, every single word that we spoke proved our stance. And the only thing that I could remember was the lines from Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, which said, love her, love her, love her for she favors you. And we would do exactly that. With that, I would like to rest my case but not my stance. Thank you.
Thank you, Jyotika. You can we now we would request the judges to give up their marking sheet while we have the four speakers to come up and tell us what their thoughts on the motion. And the proposition reserved speaker is Shreya Srivastava, who's done a sterling job all morning asking all the questions. So Shreya, over to you.
More speeches are
Shreya, will 5 minutes be enough for you, or you want some more time? 4 minutes? 4 minutes. 4 minutes, okay. It's a rather complicated cooking microphone.
Check. I hope I'm audible. Good morning to one and all present here. I, the reserved speaker of side proposition from Lamar Girls College, Lucknow, will present my speech on the self count of 3, 2, and 1. Greetings, members. A thought I would like you all to remember today is God is dead and we killed him. Members, I would have to say it was admirable to see how confident side opposition was, even though they were completely wrong. Initially, members, artificial intelligence uses a psychology trick known as compulsive communication. Now, members, what is this? When we enter a small prompt to artificial intelligence, it gives a long paragraph answer. Why? Because when a lot of information is burdened on you, you are compelled to respond back, hence increasing our overall screen time and decreasing our overall human interaction to other humans. Secondly, members, it's a very well-known fact, or rather my worthy opponents, it should be a very well-known fact, that solos Dios and restos on coso, God is the only one who creates and then all are copies. Duplication can never be equivalent to creation. AI can duplicate to be an artist, AI can duplicate to be a therapist, but it can never be one. Members, as they brought opinions and we are bringing back, allow me to give you another one. Members, a survey and experiment was conducted by AII. What was it? A narcissistic 17-year-old was told to tell his problems to artificial intelligence and then to tell his problems to therapists. The artificial intelligence just validated the point of the boy and the actual human therapist induced empathy in him, which proves that artificial intelligence is just a sweet thing and your actual health is a bitter medicine. Thirdly, members, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall and so did side opposition's arguments. Members, authors in their very stories have disclosed how AI will isolate us. How? By Anupul by Satyajit Ray, it was shown how a Hindi teacher brought home a clone and the clone started doing all its things. That is, buying vegetables, pressing his clothes, and at the end, leading to his overall human interaction being lessened. And when that very same clone, though for self-defense, but killed his only family, he was left all alone and nobody bore the consequences. Moreover, members, I believe if ignorance is bliss, side opposition should be the most happiest people alive. Because members, we all know society is already isolated. Why? Because of addiction. Addiction to doom scrolling, addiction to other substances. And another addiction that the CEOs of AI organizations are saying is AI addiction. Why is that? Because people want their point to be validated. Shakespeare very rightly said about the poem Friends and Flatterers, and survey proves that people majority fall in the hands of baseless flatterers rather than actual friends. Members, even the butterfly effect, which says that small changes lead to bigger consequences, prove it. I today use my artificial intelligence to do my homework. Later on, I as a graphic designer will use Ghibli art to do my AI. This is lowering my overall creativity because all I'm doing is give it a prompt. Is it right, members? No, it is isolating my overall creativity. To conclude, members, I just like to start with what I stated. God is dead and we killed him. God represents human interaction, connection, this inner empathy that we feel. And the use of AI is making this die by isolation. Lastly, members, I would just like to say, looking at this debate, it made me feel like reliving the Alice in Wonderland story. Why? Because side opposition case was bizarre, curious, and ultimately leading to nowhere, members. Because even broken clocks are right twice a day, they were still behind. Thank you. With that, I rest my case, but never my stance.
Thank you, Sheila. Do take your seat. Abhilasha Sinha is the reserve speaker for the opposition. And if you were to study human evolution because of a global cataclysmic event, there was one point in our evolutionary history where Homo sapiens was reduced to about 1,000 individuals. And there is no fossil evidence of either Denisovans or Florensis or Neanderthals here in that period. So I wonder, in times of great danger, do we isolate ourselves or do we become even friendlier than we were before? This is like a global event that's happening to us. Abhilasha, over to you.
Thank you, sir. There was once a comfortable story to be told, but down in the shadows deep, the very souls, their secrets keep, a hovel of clay and a floor of mud, the children's cry for bread a plea, and the mother's tears a tragedy, for wealth and comfort far away, they battle hunger day by day. Members of the House, I wrote this poem today after listening to the arguments given by side proposition, being totally amused by the lack of logic in their arguments and how they have narrowed down their stance, talked about only, as they mentioned, 1% of the society. Members of the House, will you tell the hungry children in Gaza or the hungry children in Palestine, the oppressed women in Afghanistan, that their isolation, the fact that they are excluded, the fact that they are helpless in a state of helplessness and have no solution is because of AI? Will you say that? Today, I ask the members present in this house, as being members of the society also, the thing that has been debated today, will you answer that question to be a yes or a no? Today, the motion was an absolute motion. They were supposed to prove that AI itself as a whole in society is making it more isolated, which they have not. They have talked about a cherry pick 1% of society. But members of the House, I thought that was not cherry picking examples, but tomato picking examples, and that too rotten ones, because they have just proved our stance by giving all of the arguments and the constructives that they have given. They have said how AI is not accessible to all. Therefore, members of the House, let me address both of these solutions. How AI is accessible to some and not accessible to some. Number one, before starting with my refutations, I would like to say that problem stems from the pre-existing problems of socio-economic differences and disparities, and not because of AI itself. Today, the people who have access to AI are connected because they have AI, and those who don't are also connected because they don't have AI. Let me give you an example. I don't play any kind of online games. Therefore, I sometimes feel that I might not be connected to the people who play games, but me and my 4 friends who also do not play online games are also connected to each other, and that, members of the house, is exactly what AI does. Today, side opposition has given you a macro impact, a macro outcome, and a macro picture of this very emotion. We have not narrowed down our examples, not cherry-picked our examples, and not only constructed our arguments in a way that it only validates 1% of the people. We have given you constructives that validate 100% of the people, like this motion has spoken about today, society at large, society as whole. Therefore, members of the house, again I ask the question, if you think the oppressed women in Afghanistan and the hungry children in Gaza are socially isolated because of AI, and if the answer to that question is no, according to even 1% of the member present in this house today, then the opposition has won this debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhilasha. This is your seat. Before I throw the speeches open to the floor, I think the ideal speakers at this juncture would be debaters from the other schools who have a tournament coming up in the afternoon after lunch. I think, first of all of you are young, and therefore there is this one book which I strongly recommend to you. It's called AI in 2041. It's unlikely that I will be around to understand the impact of AI in 2041, given my vintage age. But do read that book. It's like 10 short stories, one of which is based in India, which tells you which way AI might go in the fields of healthcare, education, family life, filmmaking in Bollywood, social ties, generational ties, taking care of the young. It might be an interesting read. It's not too difficult because the format is there's a short story and then there's the interpretation of that story in terms of lessons. So AI is important in our debating sphere because from what I have experienced, 2/3 of our debates are centered around AI. And therefore, you would do well to prepare yourself for the college level and in further levels of school competition by doing a bit of reading up on AI and to give us even better speeches than the brilliant words we have today. So first of all, can we have a round of applause for the debaters on stage because they are absolutely brilliant and discussing every expectation and exceeded. Debating makes great rivalries. There's this famous story about the British House of Commons where a lady member in the opposition was so angry with the male member in the proposition that she said, if you were my husband, I would poison your coffee. And the male member of the proposition or the government then said, I would happily drink that coffee, given the fact that I were your husband. I think because of that, they did not serve coffee on stage. Did you notice? We got no coffee because, the poisoning aspect is not something that we want to even give you an opportunity. But debating also makes great friendships. Priyam is a brilliant young debater whom I have heard from the high school level. Today we are the best of friends, and in my personal life I started debating with two hated debaters from Medical College Calcutta called Kunal Sarkar and Sandeep Chatterjee, and I was in a college called Presidency, which is right next door, separated only by a wall and a lane. And as a result, we ended up forming an association to promote debate. So at the end of this debate, before I open this up, remember you're here, as I said, not only to inform and make us understand and entertain us, but also to make great friendships. So walk away from this hall with new friends, because that is friendship born out of respect for your intellect, the intellectual capacity and the debating skills of those who have come here. So use this opportunity to form your bonds, and many of you will go to colleges where you end up again together, and then you might form a debating team. So with these few words, and I can't resist saying this because I really firmly believe that debating is an intellectual exercise that encourages bonds and encourages people to come together. Let me throw it open to the floor. And who from the floor would like to come up and speak? Yes, you need to walk briskly because while the tabulators are at it, the guillotine hangs over you. The moment you finish, and you're from the Kolkata school, right? And can we have a speaker from Lucknow after this? Is there a speaker from Lucknow who would like to make a comment? Okay, good. Could you just come up and sit somewhere closer to us? So that we can introduce yourself and tell us which side you tend to favor. Please.
Good afternoon. I am Pritam Agarwal. I'm part of the Inter-Martiniere for Boys Relations. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not artificial intelligence that is making us more isolated from society. It is side proposition who is isolated from society, because today they have painted such a dystopian image of what society really is. Today, Chairperson Sir began this debate by talking about how he is part of the dinosaur era. Sir, I'm not sure about you, but I'm sure side proposition is part of the dinosaur era, because they do not understand about how machinery and AI inherently works. Today, according to the equation they have provided us, if we interact with machinery, that makes us more isolated. Then according to that logic, if we have advancements in science, technology or any field, that will make us more isolated. And at the end of the day, that in itself is inherently fallacious. Constantly they have said, we connect with AI. But there is a mistake, Chairperson Sir. We do not connect with AI. They connected with AI before this debate, but we do not. Because inherently, we can only connect with something that we understand, something which has emotions. And since it is clearly been understood that AI is a tool, thereby we cannot connect with it. And since they have constantly reiterated that we connect with AI, that in itself shows us that this motion does not stand. Today, if I ask the coconut seller sitting on the intersection of Downing Street what he thinks about isolation and AI, he will ask me, do you want the coconut with or without water? And ladies and gentlemen, this shows us society consists of me, it consists of you, but it also consists of the coconut seller. It also consists of those who are not privileged enough to come up here and attend this debate. And this has continuously been ignored by side opposition in their equation of society which they have proposed before this house today. Today they say we are depending on AI. But no, ladies and gentlemen, we use AI as the tool which Chairperson Sir said it is, and there is a fine line between using something and being dependent on it. A line which side of proposition has been unable to see in today's debate. Today, as I come to the end of my speech because of the restricted time I believe, I think, ladies and gentlemen, if you still do not believe that this motion has been defeated, maybe you can open your phone and ask ChatGPT. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Young man, there is an election coming up in Bihar. In the government West Bengal, I see a very bright future for you in both these elections. Please, my friend, come on. But I like your speech. I really admire what you said. I think both the teams will appreciate it too. Yes. Can we have a round of applause?
Good afternoon, members of the House. I am Nehansh Karotra from the swimming team of the Martiniere College, Lucknow. Please ignore my voice as I have a sore throat. In today's digital age, technology is omnipresent, shaping how we communicate, interact, and engage with the world around us. While technology has brought many benefits, such as increased connectivity and access to information, there was an ongoing debate about whether it is making us more isolated. Artificial intelligence is making people more alone. We are spending more time with machines and less time with friends and family. Social media is also making it worse. We are talking to computers and phones more than people. This can make us feel sad and lonely. We need to find a balance between technology and spending time with others. If we don't, we might forget how to talk to people and feel happy when we are with them. Let's make sure to use technology wisely and not let us us feel alone. We need friends and family. Thank you.
Do we have any other speakers on the floor? None other? I do pardon me, the light is in my eyes, but do I see a raised hand? No. Thank you. While the tabulators are, is there a hand at the back? No. Thank you. Anybody from the seniors non-student category, teachers, faculty members, would you like to comment on the motion? How you felt about AI and no? So can I take the liberty of asking perhaps Priyam to come and tell us? Since you're in a splendid majority of one, among the judges, I thought maybe I should go with you first. And can we have a round of applause for Priyam Madam, a brilliant debater and a wonderful, wonderful writer. I really admire not only the way he speaks, but also the articles he writes, which range from everything from cricket to food. So, Priyam, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Good afternoon. I think we've had a wonderful debate. Firstly, I would like to commend the person who came up with this motion for actually giving us a balanced debate. In today's times when practically every third motion is an AI motion, to have a motion which does justice to both sides of the house is not easy. So this was a good motion and it was well chosen by whoever chose it. Secondly, I thought that all 8 of you did a fabulous job, so a big round of applause for them. I have 2 lines of feedback. One is on the general approach and the way you spoke, and the second is on the motion itself. So let's come to the approach first. Again, very commendable that you came here, spoke for 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minutes in certain cases, and you did it largely without referring to any piece of paper. So that in itself, I think, is a skill we are losing. We have very senior leaders who can't make a speech without looking at teleprompter. So to have some of the best young minds in 2 cities of the country come up and give us excellent speeches without referring to a piece of paper is very impressive. The questions also were very impressive. It's not easy to think of 2 questions for each speaker. You have to listen actively. And I think active listening is one of the skills that we are losing today. One minor issue I had with some of the speeches is that I feel the rhetoric is getting a little too corrosive and also it's not relevant to the motion. I am all for wit and humor, but it has to be connected to the motion. You can't just come up and say nice lines because they sound nice. So that is one thing I would discourage the speakers, or at least make them think a little more about. Coming to the motion itself, I think one very relevant theme in all AI debates is the idea that consciousness and intelligence are not the same thing. When we talk about connection, it happens usually, at least in all of human history so far, it has happened with conscious beings. All conscious beings are intelligent, but not all intelligent entities are conscious. No AI chatbot has consciousness. If they do at some point 10, 15, 20 years down the line, that would be truly and remarkably radical. They don't have consciousness right now. ChatGPT does not know it is ChatGPT in the way you or I know, you are you and I am I. Can human beings connect with something that is not inherently conscious? That's an open question, also a subjective one. I'll give you 2 very powerful examples. Both have come from America in recent times. In the New York Times, there was a mother of a 29-year-old woman who wrote an op-ed about how her daughter's last ever conversation in life was with ChatGPT. She committed suicide and she wrote a letter to ChatGPT and then a letter to her parents which was written by ChatGPT. In another instance, I think it was a 15-year-old or 16-year-old who died in one of the mass shootings in America. And we had a journalist who conducted an interview with the AI version of that dead child. Child is dead, but his AI version is doing an interview. And the parents were so taken by that the parents kept talking to the AI version thinking that their son was still alive in some way, shape or form. Let's understand what is the incentive of these AI tools. The incentive of these AI tools is to keep us engaged. ChatGPT, Google, name it. They want us to spend as much time as possible on their platforms. In one way, yes, that kills isolation, because that makes us feel connected. A lot of human beings, especially Gen Z and Gen Alpha, the reason why they go to a ChatGPT for therapy is because they don't feel judged. That they would feel by any human therapist, even the best ones. So what are we to make of a society where part of the section of the society is very comfortable speaking to AI, knowing that they are not conscious, but also knowing that at some level, they will not judge them. And another aspect of AI, which is it is being able to mimic human behavior so well that after a point you may not understand if you are talking to a human after all. There are cases of fraud happening every day, of identity theft happening every day, because somebody is thinking they're talking to another human being, when they're actually talking to AI. So I think it's an open question. I do not want to side on either side of the house based on this debate or even otherwise. But I do think it is very important as a society to understand what are we to make of an AI technology that increasingly wants to be like us, increasingly wants to be human, but lacks the most fundamental quality of humanity, which is consciousness. And if and when that quality comes in, then the whole debate changes, perhaps life itself changes. So thank you so much to Rebuttal for having me here today. Thank you so much for a wonderful debate.
Thank you, Priyank. The results are here, and may I request the two principals to come on stage, please, from the Rebuttal, the Lucknow School and the Kolkata School, the leading principals, would please come on stage for the announcement of the results. And we've been, tremendously entertained by all of you, and I thank you once again. May we have a round of applause for the audience. With the permission of the two principals, I stick my neck out and say, can we have a show of hands from the floor? How many of you think AI is making us more isolated society? Don't go according to school lines, that's very partisan. Right? And one hand please, not two hands, not both, thank you. And how many of you think AI is not making us more isolated? Well, thank you, you may put your hand down. I must say that the judge's decision was in synchronization with the decision of the audience. May I request the three judges to come on stage, please? Going to your camera, please to come on stage. So, the motion has been
the winning team, Rebuttal for Girls, Kolkata.
The motion therefore today stands defeated, and the best speaker of the morning is Sudiksha. Thank you, you've been a wonderful audience, and may I request the two teams now to shake hands and part as friends till you meet next year. The runner-up trophy will be presented to Rebuttal Lucknow, so would you please come ahead? I like the strategy that you had of one person asking all the questions. Rebuttal Lucknow, please come forward. Jyotika is the team leader. Thank you. And this has been an amazing debate for one more reason. Only once was Donald Trump mentioned. And he's going to feel very left out, and I hope it doesn't lead to more tariffs on us. We didn't mention Sam Altman even once. Nobody mentioned Elon Musk. I think. What? Yes. Now we have the presentation of certificates by Mrs. Sarkar to the Rebuttal for Lucknow students. Thank you. And for the presentation of certificates to members of the Kolkata team.
All you switch up and let me see you clap your hands. Now that you got the beat, let me see you clap your feet. Now that you got the groove, let me see your body move. Go, 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 Sriksha!
Thank you. You've been a wonderful audience and we've had a great morning. Thank you. Goodbye.